I'm John Gaver with Allegiance Books. One of the many hats I wear with Allegiance is that of graphic designer. And I posted this image out on a couple of the Affinity photo Facebook groups, and I got some comments back, and one actually said, well, can you show us how to do it? Well, I can tell you how, but showing you how is going to take about 20 minutes. I do all of the book covers. This is all my work here. This is our logo for Allegiance Books. This is using the same kind of technique that I'm going to show you right here. So before I get into it, I'm going to show you what we're going to cover. We're going to create the text. This is going to be out of Arial bold, and it's going to be a gold color. We're going to convert it to curves, and we're going to adjust and join the curves. Adjusting the curves means making these little pointy bottoms to the straight up and down characters. We're going to join the curves, like here we've joined the crossbars and the F. We're going to join this portion right here, and we're going to join the H to the I. And we're going to import a pattern for the face, so it's not just a flat color. We're going to recolor the face pattern because it's not going to be the right color to start with. We're going to use a curve then to brighten the face pattern. We're going to create a basic FX bevel and then use a curve to make the bevel shine. And when I talk about shine, this is what I'm talking about right here. This is not ready for prime time. I can improve on this, but I threw this together as an example to post out to Facebook. So that's what we're going to do. And so let's start from scratch. I'm going to File, New, letter size is good. And I'm going to use the artistic text down here. And I think that ought to be about the right size. I'm going to make this bold, and I want to make it gold. Now I use RGB hex sliders because, I missed that when I did that. I use RGB hex sliders because I have some shortcuts here. So I don't have to remember that gold is, what is this, FFD700. I just type a shortcut that I know, and now we'll start. A little bit too big, not a problem. I hit escape and V, and I'm just going to bring this back down to where it's close into where I want. And now I will hit Option and drag this down with the Shift key in place. Select the whole thing. I've got two different pieces of text. Now, if you remember, we're going to line up, where are we? Let's bring this one over here. Line up this one right here, and we don't want this to be too far away. So I'm going to line this up, Escape V, there we go. Now, if you notice, when I'm lined up here, this is going to be a little far away. So I'm going to want this Y and the T to be closer, and I can make I can shrink different parts of it. So I'm going to shrink this right here because this space and this space can be shrunk and not make much difference. So I'm going to select these two characters. It's selecting what's after each character. I'm going to go into my character dialog, and I'm going to reduce this. I'm going to say minus, and we'll get down there. That looks pretty good there. The distance here now is not that great. Maybe I'll go a little bit further. 26, that's pretty good. Now this has probably affected where this one comes in, but it should be pretty close to right. So let's just move this on up here. Yes, now I'm going to zoom in and get this lined up. Okay, that's where I want that. And that looks like it's going to probably be pretty good. I think I like that. So now we're pretty much ready to convert this to curves. So I'll close all this up. Now, normally for most people, you'll have convert to curves right up in here. I put a lot of stuff up here. So my convert to curves is off to the side. That's these two little arrows up here on the right, the greater than, double greater than. Okay, so now we'll select both of these layers and we'll convert to curves. And there we go. Now what we've done is we've created two groups, the top and the bottom group. I don't want them grouped, so I'm going to, with both of those groups selected, I'm going to select ungroup. Now we have all of these as individual curves. And the first thing we're going to do is make all these little pointy things. So I'm going to hold the shift key down. I'm going to go 1, 2. I'm going to adjust this one too. For giggles and grins, I may do it a little bit differently than I did before. And I'm clicking the left side of each vertical piece of text. Nothing else hits the bottom straight up and down. So I've got all of those adjusted. And I'm just going to hold the shift key down because I want to be going straight up and down. And all of those move the same way. So I'm going to set them to about, that's about right, I guess. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to select one more. Here we go. Now, if I do this, they all adjust the same. And I said I was going to do this differently, but I will go up here first. I'm setting up each one of these to do what I want. So I'm going to hit shift left, left, and that gets those two together. Now I'm going to click in here without the shift key. Now hit the shift key here, and I can run this up like that. But it's not touching. So that's the thing I'm going to do a little different this time. Here is a trick right here. I'm going to click on this one without the shift key, right click, and break curve. Now I'm going to click on this spot, hold the shift key down and draw this over to the left a ways, and I'm going to make another little pointy thing there. It doesn't make a point yet, but that's because this hasn't been moved yet. Now notice up here I have snap turned on, and I've got snapping to handles. There's my handle I'm going for, so I'm just going to click on this one and drag it to this handle, and I just made a little pointy thing. Now finally I'm going to click in here. I've turned off all the others. Now when you click here, you don't want to click and drag. If you do, it does that. You want to click first, then come back and drag it. I'm going to do the same thing here, click, now come back as a second motion and drag it and snap to that handle. I'm going to bring this one down and snap it to that handle. Now I've got the Y selected. I'm going to hit shift and select the T. Now I'm going to right click in here and go to geometry, add. Now that has become one curve. I'm going to do the same thing over here with the F's. Make that geometry, add, and now that's one curve. If I were going to join these two together, I would line them up, join them together, and then do the same thing. But I'm going to do this differently though. I just like the idea of doing this. Now I've got to fix this. I'm going to go click in here, right click, convert to smart. I'm going to click on this handle, shift, vertical. So that makes it, by hitting the shift key, it locks it to 90 degrees. When I come up, I'm going to drag this up to somewhere a little above this dot over here. So I'm going to hit the Shift key and drag this up to about there. You can already begin to see how it's forming a little bit. I'm going to click over here, do the same kind of a thing, convert to smart, Shift key, and drag that to vertical. Shift key, convert to smart. Now I'm going to not use the Shift key on this one because I'm not going vertical. That's close enough for right now. And then this one I'm going to convert to smart and bring this up where it lines up with these others. And I'm actually going to bring this over a little bit. Like that. I think that looks pretty close to good. Bring this one over some more. This is all based on what you want it to look like. I'm going to drag this down slightly. I think that looks pretty good. We could do better if we wanted to, but that's a good starting point. Now we want to rasterize all of these. Now to do that, I'm going to select all of them. I could rasterize right now, but if I do, I end up rasterizing it with like 10, 11 different raster images there. I don't want that. So I'll undo. I have to group them first. A little trick. Group them. I'll just call it X. I don't care what it's called. And now I'm going to rasterize, and it rasterizes the entire group into one image. Now I'll duplicate that. One group's going to be the face, one group's going to be the bevel. So I'm going to go into this one, and I'm going to create an outline. That outline is going to be in a dramatically different color than what this is. Well, black is a different color. So I'm just going to, I want this to be an inside outline. And now we'll go ahead and drag this out. Now if you drag it too far, you see what happens here on the H and the N? It overwrote part of the face. I don't want it to go that far. So I'm going to bring this back down to, that looks pretty good. Where am I at here? 17.6. Let's go to 18 even. That's a number I can remember. Now, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to want to select the gold section, not selecting the black. And you'll do that with the wand, the flood select tool here, W on your keyboard. But if you select it now, it selects the black as well. That's because FX is effectively a sort of a pseudo layer, and the gold extends under that black. So let me escape out of that, and we're going to rasterize. Even though this is a raster layer, we're going to rasterize it again, and here's the reason why. This little checkbox right here says Preserve Layer FX. We're going to get rid of that. So all we're doing is we're flattening the black onto the gold. So now if I go into the wand and I select, wand, there we go, and I select in here, by the way, you want contiguous to be unchecked and tolerance to be 0. So now I've selected that and only the gold is selected. I'm going to create I'm going to create a mask right here, and I just click on that. And now that mask appears above the top layer, and it affects both layers. We're going to take care of that in a minute. I can hit escape and get rid of the chasing ants. I can also get rid of this layer because I don't need this one anymore. I'm going to instead go over here and grab a pattern. I've got some brushed patterns here. I have a fine texture. Here's a model. This one's one that I've used to good effect at times, but I'm going to use this modeled pattern. I'm just going to drop it in here. and it's now under the face, under the mask. I'm going to hit escape, V, and I'm going to drag this over here. Normally, if I was doing this for production work, I would tile this effect. It is a tileable pattern, but I'm just going to stretch it for the purpose of what we're doing here. And now I'm going to group these two. And when I group, the reason for grouping them is so that the mask does not affect anything but this one layer. So the bottom layer is going to show through. So let's group them. And now, I'm going to call this one face group. Now you've got your pattern in there. That's the wrong color. Now we're going to correct the color. So let's go into this, go into our pattern that we've got down here, and I'm going to set Recolor. Now we're working with gold, and I happen to know that gold is 51 degrees. So I do 51. Look at that. It just became gold. Now it's not the right shade of gold. I can play with brightness here and do that. I can play with saturation and sort of desaturate it a little bit. It gets a little more rusty color there. I can also play with opacity. But for right now, let's just leave it at 51 degrees and do the next thing. And I'll come back to this in a moment. I'm going to add a curve. Here's a curve. And I'm going to add a curve. Look at what happens to that font. And I kind of like something that looks like that. Sort of like an airplane wing. Maybe bring this down a little bit. So let's look at it. You don't get a lot of detail in that. Now we can go back and create our detail back here. I can darken this a little bit. There comes some detail in. I can drop my saturation down maybe a little bit. Let's see what we got here. It looks kind of like a shiny gold maybe, depending on how the light hits it. You can play with this for hours. I'm not going to do it, but this gives you an idea of how you can put any kind of pattern on top of this. I can put another pattern just to show you here. Bring this one in. Now just put a different pattern on that. Again, I would have to recolor that. I can actually bring that into here, and now my recolor is a little bit different. That's just some of the things that you can do. I'll go ahead and get rid of that one though. This is now pretty much ready. I'm going to go down to the second layer now, and I'm going to add a bevel. I'm going to zoom in on this first. So let's try the F-I-N. Okay, right in there. I'm going to add a bevel, and I had, 18, I think, a while ago. So I'm going to make this 18 pixels. Oh, and by the way, I want this inside, not outside. Oh, I'm on outline. That's not what I want. I want bevel. Here we go, bevel. And I don't want pillow. I want inner. Turn that one off. Okay. So I want inner, and I want that to be 18. Same as the outline was a while ago. So now you'll notice though that this is sort of a rounded bevel. I want a flat one. And here's your bevels. You can change how they look. This is a concave, convex bevels. This one has a drop off at the edge here. I'm just going to go with a flat bevel. You see what happened? It just turned into a flat edge. I'm also going to turn this from an azimuth. Right now the light's coming from the upper left, as indicated by this spot right here. I'm going to turn it to 45 degrees because it helps me teach this a little bit better, because in a minute we're going to see a curve, and that curve runs at this angle, and I want that 45 degrees there because it helps show what's happening. So anyway, I'm going to come back to soften later. I'm going to add an outer shadow just because it helps a little bit. And that's about 10% good. I'm going to do a radius. Okay, I'd say that's probably pretty good there. Oh, And my angle here, I need this to be 225 degrees because it's the opposite of 45 degrees. So the light shines from the right side and creates a shadow down to the lower left. So now I will run my offset up here. Now watch what happens here. I am going to, let's go to this N. I want to go offset down to the left until this top shadow goes completely away, and I'm going to add just a little bit back. So there we go. I think it's completely away. You can tell by clicking this. Yep, no change here. So I'm just going to add a little bit back. And the reason is eventually this is going to be almost white. And I want there to be something to define the difference in the text and the background. So if it's on a white background, let's try this and see. And still not enough. Bring this over just a little more. So now you see just a little haze of shadow when I turn that off and on. That's all I need. So I'm done with that. And now you see we've already got some really neat bevel working here, except you see these little artifact lines? They're going to come into play even more later. But we'll go ahead and do this. Hang on. So I've got my bevel set up, and here comes the magic. Curves. Oh, I love curves. I love curves. Okay. There's two dots on this curve here. And think of this top dot as being this part of the image, and the bottom dot as being this part. It's not really that way, but it helps you to understand it. I'm going to add about 6 more dots in here. You might want more, might want less. This is a good starting point, and it's usually all I need. So this is affecting this area. Let me go down to the O. That shows very well. Or the H. How about the H? That's good. I want this little curve in here. If I bring this down, this portion here gets darker. If I bring it over to the left, it gets lighter. I don't want to get it too light, but I want to get it a little light there. And drop this down. Now I'm coming down the line from here to here now. This drops down a little bit and gets a little darker in here. Now I'm going to bring this up, and watch what happens in here when I bring this one up. This is where you begin to see the shiny effect. Look at that. See it happening? Now I'm going to slam this up against the top because I can get a little better effect here that goes with what I'm trying to achieve. Now you see how this has become almost white, but you can still see that shadow which kind of delineates it there. And now this one, I'm going to move it over to the left slightly and down. Now they're just going to go up and down, up and down. So let's try this. Now notice this down here. Watch this as I move this up and down. See what happens? I don't want this to be too bright. This is in shadow. That's a little too bright there, but that's okay. Now this is too much in shadow, I think, so what I'm going to do, bring that up a little bit. See what's happening? We've got a nice shiny bevel, except for all these artifacts. Remember what I said? Oh, one more thing to talk about before I get out of here. If you want to make that closer to white, here's a little trick. Go into blue and go up here somewhere near the top and just drag it up slightly. See what happens? You're adding just enough blue in there to make it go kind of towards the white. You don't have to. It's something, and you can play with these curves like that on specific colors. But let's go back in here. Now watch what happens in here and down in here, all over here, as I run the softness up. Now the softness, I'm at 18, so I'm probably going to go less than 9, but I'm going to go up and down real quick right now so you see it. See what happens? Okay, you can do some crazy things with that. Now I want to go just enough to get rid of those lines, and there's still some lines visible in here. That's only at 2, but I don't want to go too high. If I go up above 9, I'm losing some of my effects in here. So I'm going to go a little less than half. I would say that's pretty good. And I can close that up. And there you are. That's pretty much the only thing I changed in the original is that this was connected all the way up. And on this one, I didn't connect it. I added an angle to the top of the H. But those are the kind of things you can do. You can add angles on the N and the I here if you wanted to, things like that. But this gives you an idea of what you can do. You can change all these colors now. For example, on the face, you can go into above the curves. You want to do this above the curves and say add brightness and contrast. And I can brighten that up a little bit and maybe bring my contrast around. So you can change stuff with brightness and contrast. Let's go ahead and delete that for a second. And another one is vibrance. Go down here to vibrance, and you can add more vibrance, more color to it. You can add more saturation. Vibrance affects only the bright portions though, so I like to drop the saturation down a little bit and maybe run the vibrance up some. You can do a lot of things with this though, but do it above the curves. Same thing if you're doing something on the bevel. This is the bevel group down here. Did I group this one yet? I didn't group that one. I should have grouped this and called this the bevel group. And the reason for doing that is so that the curve that I just applied here, if you happen to set this on something else, it doesn't apply to anything except this layer, that's the bevel layer down here. But you can adjust this, and now let me show you one other little trick here. Now that we're in here, I can adjust my azimuth. Watch what happens. Let's look at the P and the H, I think, here. Run the azimuth around, watch what happens. See that? You're changing where the light's coming from. Now when you do that, you really should go back in and change your outer shadow as well. I'm going to go ahead and put this back to 45 degrees. You can also do some stuff with 3D. And you've got some, let's see, I would have to do, what was that, 18. And that's locked. So both the radius and depth go to 18. And my profile has to be the same. See what happens? We're changing stuff. Now we got those little artifacts back. Let's go do our soften. Ooh, look what just happened. Is that cool? Now there you see why I needed that little bit of shadow there just to delineate that. So you can do stuff in 3D. You can play with shininess. Bring it up and down. You can play with the specular. Add more or less specular light. Here's your ambient light. Do the same thing. You can even change the color of the light, and you can add more than one light. So that's just one other thing you can do there, but you know, this is just your basic one. Have fun with it. I hope something I've said helps you. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm John Gaver with Allegiance Books. Happy designing. Have a good day.